Thank you to my channel members and Ko-fi supporters that make these videos possible. You can also support me by buying a deck tech on my weekly Tuesday and Sunday streams. More info in the video description. Hello everyone! Pauper EDH is a format that I think is rather neat. It's like normal Commander, but your 99 must be entirely commons, Rhystic Study and Mystic Remora are banned, and you can have any uncommon creature as your commander, even non-legends. It's a format that, of course, appeals to someone like me, who loves deck building restrictions and saving money. But this being said, it's not a format that particularly has a scene around me, so playing it regularly would be rather hard. So I tried to make a Pauper EDH deck that was not only legal in regular Commander, but could thrive in it. I started all this by seeing what tutors were in Pauper EDH. After all, I am nothing if not a toolbox boy. This led me down a long line of failures before I found something that worked well. The idea of building Orzhov Rebels did come to mind, but ultimately I decided that was going to be far too weak even before attempting to build it. I tried to build a lands deck with Perry the Pulverizer and a Gates package because of cards like Crop Rotation, Basilisk Gate, Navigation Orb, Reap and Sow, but the threats were really lackluster, and it was really inconsistent. I tried to build Elves with Abomination of Llanowar because of Wirewood Herald and Fierce Empath, and it's possible that it is good enough, but I ended up cutting the Empath due to the bad pool of Biggins at common, and that made me lose interest in the deck. Not to mention, it was kind of too all-in on the commander. My last failure was Cutsil, which I do believe could be a good deck, but honestly, to me, Ors is just not particularly interesting due to its fragility, even with cool cards like Heliod's Pilgrim and Chains of Custody presenting a cool toolbox to reach into. Ultimately, I settled on OG as my commander. Big surprise, Elk likes a Flicker deck. But there's legitimately a lot of power at the common rarity with OG and the play patterns they promote, even at a normal non-Pauper table. Firstly, blue is just the color in Pauper that has the most bleed through to actual normal commander. Kind of full stop. You get counterspells, including actual factual counterspell, a broken suite of cantrips, which OG loves to double spell with, and a ton of good ETBs, including draw, removal in the form of tapping and bounce, and like 4 different Archaeomancer effects. Not to mention, some of the best flicker spells are just common. Secondly, OG supports a combo line that is used in normal commander decks. Peregrine Drake is a common. When paired with Archaeomancer effects and Ghostly Flicker or Displace, you can make infinite mana. OG works well with this because if you happen to get the God Hand, you can win as early as turn 4 by playing them on turn 3 with the help of turn 2 ramp, then deploying the Drake afterwards into second spelling with the Archaeomancer with your now untapped lands, causing OG to flicker the Drake, which gives you more mana to then cast the Ghostly Flicker and start the loop. Now, of course, this is the actual God Hand. The deck is a combo deck at its heart, but this line relies on drawing the Drake somewhat. The rest of the combo is easy to grab because of the multiple copies of Ghostly Flicker and the multiple copies of Archaeomancer. In fact, you can get the rest of the combo with Muddle the Mixture. Don't believe me? Here we go. Muddle the Mixture can transmute for Vedalken Aethermage, which can tutor for Archaeomancer, which can retrieve Muddle the Mixture, which can then transmute again for Merchant Scroll, which then, you guessed it, retrieve the Ghostly Flicker. You can even create an infinite through Muddle the Mixture alone if you never see the Drake. That's right, what I described wasn't even the extreme line. It starts the same. Muddle the Mixture for Vedalken Aethermage, get Archaeomancer with Wizard Cycling, which revives Muddle, and then you Muddle for Merchant Scroll, which gets Ghostly Flicker. Then you use the Ghostly Flicker to flicker Archaeomancer for the Muddle the Mixture back to get Cloud of Fairies. Anytime along this chain, if you double spell and trigger OG, you can flicker Archaeomancer to get Merchant Scroll back, to retrieve High Tide, which is your second spell, which triggers OG, which flickers Archaeomancer to return the Ghostly Flicker to start the combo with High Tide active, Cloud of Fairies, Archaeomancer, and Ghostly Flicker. Now, if this sounds unrealistic, that's because it is, but it's more of an illustration to the point that any part of the combo that I don't draw can be found by some other part of the deck. If you want to do the extreme line, it probably won't be in one giant turn, but over the course of a game with fogs and counter magic. Also, the reality is I'll draw some parts of the combo in some games, making not all this tutoring required. Anyway, from either that position or just doing the combo with Drake, all you need is OG and a way to draw a card, and you can now scry your way through your whole deck for either Lonely Arroyo, if you haven't made your land drop yet, for infinite damage, or you can find one of the 2 initiative creatures in the deck and flicker them forever to venture into the Undercity until you kill your opponents. You also happen to gain infinite life this way too. Speaking of, you can't beat infinite life with the dungeon route, since each trip through the Undercity will take 1 to 2 cards out of your deck in exchange for 5 life loss. Sadly, you can't decline putting a creature into play with Throne of the Dead 3. This is why I advise scrying infinitely with OG instead of drawing infinite cards, because it can very well come up. That's enough about comboing in the deck. I'm sure some of you are in a white-knuckled rage at me describing how to turn Muddle the Mixture into a 2-card combo with OG. So let's talk about some of the other aspects of this all-common deck that keep me from getting cracked over the head with a lead pipe while I dig for the combo. The deck is naturally filled with ETB creatures, most of them kept cheap like my spells, so it's easy to double spell with them to trigger OG to get more value from them. Most of these creatures just draw cards for comboing, but my removal is at least partially ETB creatures. Now, normally in a Flicker deck, removal would be something like Solitude or Skyclave Apparition, or even bounce spells. But here, I leaned into tapping with cards like Frost Trickster and Gilded Scuttler. There's some bouncing going on here, as tapping is weaker against creatures that are just there to have an annoying static ability, but I decided that a mix is best, as it prevents opponents from getting good ETBs by going bounce only. Besides, Frost Trickster and the Crab are both evasive, which lets me get the initiative or monarchy back if it's stolen. And really, that's the fair plan of the deck. Don't underestimate the initiative's ability to close out games in a deck that Pillow Forts up as well as this one does. The deck's Fog Suite is Angel Song and Dawn Charm, as well as Stonehorn Dignitary, which sounds like so few, but when you realize 2 of these are tutorable off Muddle the Mixture, it really becomes a different story. Really, once you get one of the Fogs, you can easily cast it as many times as you want in one game with the help of an Archaeomancer effect, since all you need is any other instant to trigger OG on the wizard to get your Fog back. The Dignitary can be used easily in the same way, causing your opponents to skip their combat. Since OG can gain a ton of life if needed, there's no need to worry about anything other than losing the Monarch or Initiative and Commander damage, both of which these Fog lines fix. Even without OG, the Archaeomancers in the deck can loop Fogs with Ephemerate, or if you have 2 of them or just Stonehorn, Displace and Ghostly Flicker. Another part of this deck's removal suite is Counter Magic, and it really gets a lot of high quality options even at common, as mentioned previously, which then gets exacerbated by the fact that with an Archaeomancer on board and something like Ephemerate, you can loop a counterspell pretty much like you can loop a Fog. This is really the deck's solution to combo decks, or decks that can produce over-the-top burn, and it finishes the trifecta of interaction. It can fight combo on the stack, it can prevent Voltron and Aggro's combat steps, and it can bounce opposing threats that don't need combat and then counter them on their way back down. And it can reuse all these tricks indefinitely with the help of all the graveyard touching it can do. Now, naturally, a lot of the draw in the deck comes from flickering ETB creatures, but I really need to highlight the card in the deck that makes Rhystic Study blush, that being Candlekeep Sage. This card makes it so whenever you flicker OG, you draw a card, scry 2, and then draw another card, turning OG into a super Muldrifter that casts something akin to Stock Up when you cast your second spell, bare minimum. This is the minimum, of course, because the deck runs a ton of flicker effects that can cause this turbo dig to happen additional times outside of OG's own flicker. In conclusion, I feel no shame about being a little toolbox flicker combo boy, so comment away that Peregrine Drake is boring. I simply do not care, as this deck proves that I have the mandate of heaven. If you lose to a deck that's all commons, that's on you, pal. Let me know down in the comments below if you've considered a PDH deck. And until next time, bye!
Is really cool because you can saddle Caradora and start a tutor chain.
What?